Hey everybody, this is the Coffee with the Geek program, and this is May of 2018. This is a really special program. This is the first of the Black Mirror support group conversations. Now, I've been a Black Mirror fan for a few years now, and I was, as watching the Black Mirror, I was coming across, wow, there's a lot of really powerful ideas behind Black Mirror. And if you're not familiar with the show, it's on Netflix. It's a series. I believe it's also a series in the UK. That's where it originated. And there's so many powerful episodes. And yes, some of the episodes are very disturbing. So we'll try and keep it as clean as possible and hopefully as light as possible. And, as I was talking to my fellow teachers at our Technology Integrators Forum, I was like, nobody's watching this show. Why am I the only one? Because I need somebody to share. I'm starting to, get creeped out by the show. But yeah, I think there's so many great themes and powerful issues that are involved in Black Mirror that I thought was really worth talking about. So I finally convinced some people. And with me are some of those people that we've formed our Black Mirror support group. And I have two Williamsville teachers, and they're both technology integrators. And we've got Heather Krieger. Say hello, Heather.
Hi, everyone.
I've got Jennifer Murphy, also from Williamsville. Say hi, Jen. Did I miss you, Jen?
No.
Oh, there you go. There you are. And I've got Matthew Mariglia, who's also a tech integrator from Starpoint Central School District here in New York. Say hi, Matt.
Hi, everybody.
So thank you all for joining me for this first ever event. And for those of you who happen to be watching either live or later on, I'm just going to bring up my screen here and see if I can share the Coffee with a Geek website quickly. There we go. And I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see that? Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So within the Coffee with a Geek website, it's just coffeewiththegeek.org, www, and there you'll see the episode is listed here. And if you'd like to comment, I've set this as a Google Doc, and you can comment on the session. And if you're not familiar with Google Docs in the commenting section, you should, and I believe you should be able to do it without an account, or maybe you have to get the account. Let's just see. I'm not sure my internet's running slow, but if you have a Google account and you sign in, you should be able to hover your mouse along the left-hand corner of the screen, and you should get a commenting box. And so if you just write a comment, and the comments can be maybe a question about Black Mirror, maybe it's a resource or an idea that you came across relating to Black Mirror. We'd really love it if we could have this as kind of an interactive document so that people contribute comments and ideas along the lines. And if you'd want to join the Black Mirror support group, maybe we can start creating some more energy along this support group. So I hope we have people contributing. So just put a comment along the blog post, and again, we can try and make it a document that really comes to life.
Hey,
so
sorry about that. My Chromebook just died, so Jen and I are sharing now.
Okay. Not a problem. Good thing you were close by.
Yes.
So again, within the Coffee with a Geek website, if you scroll down, that first link will get you to the comment area. Some of the things that we're going to kind of start off with, we'll start off with just a quick summary. But if you're interested in reading more about Black Mirror, you can just click on the link that'll show you the Netflix series Black Mirror. Also, I put in a Common Sense Media review. If you like Common Sense Media, I love it. For educators, a great place to find information for for you as a parent and as an educator. If you want to find information about apps, games, movies that are popular today, you can click there and read reviews and get some quick and steady information about that. And also another piece that really pulled this all together as far as the Black Mirror support group, I saw Caitlin Tucker's blog, and she has a great blog within Caitlin Tucker, and she wrote a piece. It's just caitlintucker.com. And she wrote a really neat piece on the Black Mirror and this particular episode that we're going to talk about today, which is called Nosedive. So with that, I'm going to bring in my panel of awesome support group Black Mirror members. And Heather was going to tell us, maybe give us a summary of the episode we're going to talk about, which is Nosedive. And I believe it is season 3, episode 1. So Heather, take it away for me.
Yeah. Lost sound. You? Can you hear?
Can you guys hear us?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear us?
Okay. Yep. Now we can.
All right. So go ahead and give us a summary, Heather.
Okay. I think the title Nosedive is very appropriate for this particular episode. And also, Andy, I'm glad that you started with this one, because after seeing all of the episodes of Black Mirror, I think most people could relate to this one the most. And it's not overly disturbing as some other ones are. But so this kind of fits very closely, I think, with where our society has come and is going with social media. We have this young woman, Lacey, and she lives in this kind of futuristic town where everything is bright and pastels and everyone is very, very nice to each other, but you see them constantly staring into their phones.
And everyone is beautiful.
Yeah, it's just kind of, it looks like it's this perfect society. But they have these like lenses in their eyes and it's kind of like an augmented reality, and people are ranked on a scale of 1 to 5. So any interaction you have with someone, you can score them on your phone on 1 through 5, 5 being the greatest. So it's like everyone's goal in this town is to get the closest to 5 as they can. So it becomes extremely superficial. Everyone is nice to each other, but it's all fake because they're really just trying to get these likes. So as Lacey is trying to get her score up, she finally she meets with this guy who looks at her sphere of influence and is trying to get her to a level so she can get into a certain apartment complex. And she gets invited to be the maid of honor in a high 4 wedding. So it's on her way to this wedding that the nosedive begins. It's a series of unfortunate events where it starts out with her plane flight being canceled, and she gets to do a little trouble at the airport. And
forgot about that part.
An officer gives her double damage. So for the next day, she gets her score just starts plummeting, and she winds up renting a car that's old, and the electric charger doesn't work, and she gets angry with people. So it's just getting lower and lower and lower. So finally, she's hitchhiking with a low 1 person, and she finally makes it to the wedding somehow. And Naomi, the person who's getting married, tells her, don't come. She shows up anyways. She's intoxicated, she's filthy, and goes through her speech. She pulls out a knife. She's crazy. And she gets
Don't give the ending away.
She gets, okay, I should not add. Should I stop? I'm done.
Sure, yeah, we won't be a spoiler unless you want to say spoiler alert first, and then you can go ahead.
I will. I'll give the very last part, but that's totally up to you guys.
Well, hold on, let me shut the door. Okay.
Then at the very last scene, she's in jail, and right across from her is another gentleman who's in a jail cell, and they just start ripping each other apart. They've got nothing to lose. They're not reading each other anymore. And it just ends with them screaming, but you can see this little smile start on their face through their rant, kind of like letting go. They can finally say what they want and what's really on their mind.
It is a powerful endings. And, one of the links that I put in our notes here, then I'll turn to you, Matt, to talk about your experience with your daughter, is there was an NPR episode of This American Life that talked about how, it basically was interviewing teenage girls about social media. I believe it was Instagram, and just how powerful if, say, they gave an example, and actually it was the girls talking about this, if they gave one of their pictures, who liked that picture was an extremely powerful kind of social contract. And it even was like who didn't like that picture also said something. And so it really became this, became a very kind of serious way that in this particular episode, these girls were kind of, their feelings were based on who liked and didn't like. So it can be a powerful influence. So maybe with that, Matt, can you talk about your experience with your daughter?
Absolutely. I'm late to the Black Mirror party. I learned of it at our Tech Integrator Forum from all of you, and asked what it was. And someone who was sitting next to me from Newport, Terry Fouch, he said to me, "Don't watch it. It's soul crushing." which made me want to watch it even more. And I think, Andy, your advice to me was don't watch the first episode and then just move on. So I just finished the end of season 3. So I still have 6 more episodes in season 4 to watch. And I can't wait. I just absolutely can't wait. But my experience with Nosedive in particular is I began to watch it and then realized compared to the other episodes, it wasn't as, I guess you'd say, filthy or dirty, or I don't even know if that's the right word. It wasn't as disturbing, I guess. And I thought my daughter's a freshman at Newport, and she's a 9th grader. So I thought this episode is heading in a direction that she needs to see. So I kind of wandered down into dangerous territory as a dad, and my wife was sitting in a chair, and she had walked through the room in which I was watching Black Mirror a couple times and kept asking the same question, what are you watching? Because my reactions were so, I'm already talking with my hands here being an Italian guy, and I was so like, what? Are you kidding me? A pig? No way. Like, I was just saying all these kind of weird statements. So then the one episode that we watched as a family, I made them sit down and begin to watch this. And again, not knowing where it was headed. And watching my daughter and her reaction to it, and asking her questions like, is this really like this? And she's like, Dad, of course. Of course it's like this. Of course we want likes. And Andy, thanks for sharing that NPR episode, because I played that for my wife, and it almost is that they're speaking another language. And what stuck out to Nosedive for me was that everyone was speaking the same language in this town, in this world. They were all kind of almost dressed similarly. I'm not a fashion expert, but the same colors and
pastels.
And really what the episode turned for me was when my daughter, I could see the look of sympathy on her face when the juice guy, that's what I call him, the juice guy came up and tried to get her, I think, to buy a juice or buy something because he was trying to up his score.
Jesse, yeah.
And you could see in Lacey that she had this sympathetic bone and wanted to help him. She didn't really have it for her brother, but she had it for this random stranger. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, this is what we do on social media. And I'm hoping that my daughter doesn't, is that, we have this sympathy for random strangers, which isn't bad, but we don't have it for the people that are on social media right in our own world. We hammer away on them, each other. Who are we the worst to? Usually our family and friends. We're not the worst to, random strangers. So it was, again, my daughter might sit here and tell you, well, it wasn't that big of a deal, Dad, but I watching her face, she was glued to the television on what was going to happen to Lacey. And I almost kind of thought, is she watching this because she's thinking, okay, this could happen to me if my Instagram world blows up, So it was one of those things. As my light timer goes off and the whole room goes dark, how about that? Perfect timing right there. So I'm watching them now thinking, okay, which ones should I show my daughter? Haven't found another one yet that I really feel comfortable showing her. But I think it accurately portrayed the life that my daughter's living right now when it comes to being on social media and wanting that approval. And I'm trying to guide her in the right direction. But out of all the episodes, that's the one that kind of, resonated with me and my daughter like the most. I'm thinking, okay, am I doing all I can to show her that approval on social media is nothing but approval on social media? It's not a direction for your life. You shouldn't really be following whatever people are telling you to do on social media, So that's where I come. I come late to the party, but it's one of the few. It's the only episode I watch with my family, so that's why I'm glad we're talking about this one.
Jennifer, let me turn to you for a second. You have a young daughter, at least, yes?
Two, yep.
And did any of that, as a parent and an educator, did this episode ring true to you?
I lost it.
We're
Sorry.
losing volume.
Okay.
Did any
So,
of it-
Jennifer, as a parent and an educator, did Black Mirror, did this episode ring true to you as far as, how you perceive social media with your kids or your students?
Absolutely. I think as Matt said, it really hits home in terms of having teenage daughters especially. But as educators, we work with, even if we don't have teenagers, we work with them. And it's, and jumping off onto the NPR episode, the girls were very, very straightforward and candid. They were like, well, if we expect 100, 150 likes on a photo. If we don't get it, we'll change the photo, and they I found that to be refreshing, because when I first saw, not that piece of that, but I thought that NPR episode was This American Life was good, because watching Nosedive, thinking about my daughter, I didn't watch Nosedive with my daughter. Sadly, we started with the first episode. And midway through, we just agreed to disagree and turn it off. And, and my daughter was like, "Yeah, I'm done."
He's not going to do it. He's not going to do it.
I finished watching it. But so when I tried to bring her back around to watch Nosedive with me, she really had no interest. But we talk about these things all the time, because she's an athlete. She gets in the car and she will be sweaty, smelly, full of mud. And the first thing she does is take out her phone and start posting pictures. And she's like, "Oh yeah, everybody loves to see each other. We don't care how we look." And so I thought that piece of it was interesting too, because it was almost a competition in the opposite direction, to look at me, the athlete, look how hot and sweaty I am, versus look at me, the beautiful prom queen. On the NPR side of it, though, I kind of thought those girls put it into some perspective. I didn't think they almost seemed to me to understand, they're like, well, yeah, this is what we do, and this is how we socialize, and this is what we expect these likes. But they talked about some of those relationships that, if you're starting to get to know somebody, you behave a little bit more, you may like their pictures more. And some of that is, I think it's just a different way that teenagers are relating. They're doing it online, and we always had to do it face to face.
I think, you bring up a really interesting point, and I think it's, in some senses, it's common sense to think about it, but if you think back to our days in middle school, and now we look back to our children, just the differences, and, as maybe hopefully a comical example, without getting too, give you too much information about this, my daughter, when she was playing sports, she had 3 of her friends in the back seat, and I was driving. We were driving to some, basketball game or something. And one of the girls said, "Oh, I just posted this, what you did on Twitter," and, they were kind of laughing about it, but, and it was something kind of, classic, immature humor that they were doing back there. But, you think about how it magnifies, when we were kids, or at least when I was a kid, growing up, you just had to deal with it in the cafeteria. But now you're dealing with it on such a mass scale.
Can't get away from it.
Can maybe talk about how that affects our kids,
From my end, as a dad that works with technology and sits with my daughter, the one thing that you just said, Andy, is completely true, is we could get away from it. We could not answer the telephone. Our parents had rules on the telephone. When we got home, we were away from that social scene of school. And we knew that we had to cope with it if we had a bad experience, or there was drama or whatever. I'm using the word drama because that's what everybody uses now. We could get away from that between the hours of 7:30 and 3 o'clock. It's almost like the kids today don't know how to get away from it from the hours of 3 o'clock to the time they go to bed, if they ever go to bed. So there's no break from the constant, evaluation.
No, I'm fortunate in the fact that my kids are a little bit older, so they were just behind when this all exploded. So I feel fortunate in that way that they're not overly caught up in it. I don't know if any of you saw Screenagers, but I was shocked at how girls, the fakeness of the whole scope. It reminds me so much of the show, where every conversation was superficial, and how they fake the pictures. They actually get special lighting and they Photoshop and like you said, how hurtful it is when they don't get enough likes. I think that is so sad, because people will do things online, and we've all heard this before, that we never would have done to someone's face. And I think it's really sad that kids know every single thought that goes through everybody's head at every moment.
I don't know if you know this, and I don't know if this really applies, because I'm really proud of my kid, but my wife works at a local university and was able to hook my daughter up with a 20% project that she was working on with studying the effects of social media on the brain. And she went without it for 2 weeks, my daughter. And I'd like to say I'm making this up, but there was a noticeable change in her interaction with just myself and my wife. She was in the room. She was present. She was not down. In the car, she was talking about the songs on the radio. And I said to my wife, I said, almost like I got my kid back a little bit.
Wow.
So we kind of moved towards, hey, yelling upstairs, we know you're not doing homework for 6 hours. Get your butt down here. Watch this program with us. And my wife does a really good job of that. I wish I could say that I did a better job of saying, hey, and in my head is Lacey when I'm saying these things now. I'm thinking of Lacey like, I know this is a fictitious character, but I don't want her to have a permanent neck problem because her head's in that phone 24/7. But it's hard for me to completely stop it because that's how she collaborates. And even when she does her homework and talks to her friends about it, that's how it's her coping like group.
Yeah.
You know, hey, this math thing was tough. But we might have had to wait on the phone. Like I had 3 brothers. So if one of them was on the phone, I couldn't talk to one of my friends about a problem I was having or something like that. I actually had to get on my bike and ride there. So
homework's a good point. My daughter's a pretty strong math student, and it took me a while to figure out what was going on. I really thought that they were either sharing homework answers. I wasn't really sure if they were even paying attention to their homework because they would all FaceTime. Come to find out, she was actually tutoring 3 or 4 of her friends. So she would do her homework, they would do their homework, and then they would get online and they go through and she'd be like, all right. And my daughter's a very strong personality. And she'd be like, this is the right answer. And then they would work through who got what. They got that answer. And I thought, that's a perfect use of this social media. You know, that.
Yes. Love it. So there are great things that could be done, but it is a cautionary tale of the downsides.
But don't you find, it's not just kids. It's not just kids. It's that whole fear of missing out. There's, I know people on Facebook who, older women, older men, who will do the exact same thing. Post a picture, go back to look for it. They need that social validation. And
they count their likes.
Yeah, and I think it's a sad testament that we're not getting it the way we used to, maybe, or.
Yeah, I quit Facebook. It was starting to make me feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
Not that I wasn't getting stars or likes and things like that, but I would see what people were posting and the perfection. And I'm like, my life is nothing like this. And I'm like, this is making me feel bad about myself. So why should I continue? So I cut it. One day I just stopped, and it's been at least 6 months since I've looked at any. I do go on Twitter, but only to follow people like Andy and,
Right.
Yeah, the filtering section of Twitter kind of helps you maybe hone in on people that you really want to follow and people that are, positive. I agree.
Hey, can I throw
Can we
this in
talk
there?
about the truck driver for a sec?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Someone want to bring up her and her role in that because it's a good one.
Yeah. Susan, is that her name?
Yes.
Yes. And she is the person who has the only really meaningful conversation in the entire show. She used to be a very high 4, I'm going to say 4.6, 4.7, and she's now a truck driver with a 1.8. So I'll begin with that if someone wants to elaborate.
Well, and she's the only not beautiful person that appears, right, in the whole show until the end of it. She's very real. She's not in soft focus. She's
not in pastels.
Not in pastels. She smokes. She drinks. She drinks. She words.
Right. Who tries at her best to guide Lacey in the right direction, but Lacey's not taking it. It's almost like she doesn't. I don't think she says this, but almost like she says to Lacey, "All right, find out for yourself."
Yes. Well, she's the most interesting person.
She is. She went through a tragedy. Her husband became ill, pancreatic cancer, and because his level wasn't quite high enough to give him special new treatments, he died. So she realized that these numbers mean nothing.
Yeah, you know, that's a great, I liked how you tied that in because I didn't think about that as the coloring of her, you know, not the pastels, the only, you know, non-beautiful person, if that's.
Wasn't the inside of her truck dark too?
Yeah, I think it was gray, wasn't it?
It was gray,
Everything about her was kind of this gray thing, which was really, it's really intriguing. That was so intentional. And yet I kind of sensed it, but I didn't think it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's right in front of your face, hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
So we're coming close to our quitting time here, and I think we talked hopefully about some really neat, powerful themes of this. And I would definitely encourage educators to watch this and really do what Matt did. If you've got a teenager that can handle Netflix and something definitely PG-17 or 16 maybe for this episode, give that episode a try because it's definitely worth it. And again, I encourage educators to watch these series and even just parents. They're definitely watchable. Yes, they can be heavy hitting and disturbing. And if you want to get started on Black Mirror, I think we'd all agree, skip episode 1.
Agree.
Which I didn't do, by the way.
Save it for a later time.
Yeah, well, and I almost stopped there. Like when I watched that first episode, I was like, I can't watch another one of these. But you will. It is a compression and release kind of series. There are some that will kind of release and hopefully open up and give you some a little more warm and fuzzy. There's not a lot of them, but there's some of them in there. But I do think by showing you, extending the dark side of technology, maybe we can kind of look at the bright side of technology and really what all of you said about, sometimes we do need to we need to unplug from technology. We need to have our kids unplug from technology because there's some real meaningful things. We need to have that balance. So by showing the extremes, hopefully Black Mirror can bring us to kind of a good spot with technology.
Agreed.
So I'd like to bring this back again, and I'd like to bring you guys back. We'll think maybe a month or a couple months out here, but I would like to talk about Metalhead. So if you haven't seen the Metalhead episode,
which one is that one?
Should we
it's with the mechanical dog. So
I've seen that.
It's season 4, I think maybe episode 2 or 3.
Gotcha.
That one just hit me like no other episode hit me, and I'm not sure why. Probably maybe because I love dogs, and this
could happen. I think was the really frightening thing.
I think so too. It's not there's so many things that you could read into it, and it brings a lot to bear in terms of history, even. And
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's your homework, is to make sure you've watched Metalhead, and maybe we can think about some of the other key episodes. I do know San Junipero is one that was often thought of as a positive one, as well as there was a dating one as well in season 4.
That's one of my favorites with the dating app.
Yes, the dating
I haven't seen it yet. I'm late to the party. I can't wait now.
Yeah, that one's a more positive spin, and I think talks about relationships and love and all that, the good stuff of life. So maybe we'll hit on those episodes. So with that, I want to thank all of you for taking some time, and thank you for helping me deal with Black Mirror. Because I think it really helps to talk about these issues.
It did. I feel so much better.
I know. Do we bill you, Andy, or how's it work?
You've helped me. I've helped you, hopefully, and we'll call ourselves even. So thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.